Hello, everybody. This morning I was in a time of like contemplative practice and study and journaling. And I had this download. Let me back up. I had an awareness that I was feeling a little bit constricted and I wasn't sure what was happening. And I realized that this Enneagram study we've been doing has been bringing up a bunch of questions in challenges in the relational field and in myself and in some patterns. So let me start by saying I was noticing like a little, I don't really know how to describe it, curiosity, I guess. Also kind of interest. And also I noticed that I was starting to get a bit micro and fixated. And that is usually a sign for me that something's kind of off. So I know I've trained my brain and myself to say, okay, oh, you're kind of getting contracted, constricting. Let's drop it. Let's back up a little bit and get into the macro. Okay. So I started releasing that mental strain of like wanting to know, like, no, with a period and a capital, who I am and who my primary family members are, and like get all of this kind of like evidence and proof. Like that was kind of bubbling underneath the surface. So I was able to kind of drop in and get a little bit into more of this macro view, which then I could hear words like, let's be curious, return to beginner's mind. And so I asked myself, well, what would beginner's mind look and feel like? And tomorrow is Shabbat for me. And I usually spend the day in like a deep study, some kind of soul study and prayer and rest. And oh, tomorrow, what if I enter some of this with a beginner's mind, with real curiosity? What if I drop all the typings, all the groupings, and allow myself to be more dynamic in the whole? And tomorrow I have gathered all my resources and I'm going to just be really open and curious to patterns. I've got a journal that I'm going to take notes in, and just I'm really excited for this kind of like mini research project, not for any outcome, not for any proving, not for any striving, just for being open. So this led me to start to think a little bit about like parts work and the different aspects of ourselves through humanity that grow and develop. And so I started thinking about, I made this note for myself of what would a me map look like? I've got all of these different self-awareness practices and different systems, different patterns that are all really clues around self-awareness. And the reason this is so important is because the areas that we see, at least in my experience and in a lot of the people that I have communication with, is that relationships are really challenging to ourselves and to others. And so if we can develop this sense of self-awareness and self-realization and actualization in order to expand beyond the micro, right? It's like, it's in order to have a more whole, dynamic, harmonious set. So we're looking at the patterns and systems as clues of self-awareness so that we start to see the relationships between some of our own archetypes. And we're doing archetypes this year in the village, the triple goddess archetypes that will layer on of like female development. With that has a lot of gray and spectrum, and it's not tight. It's very vast. Let's put it that way. So this led me to really think about what are some of the challenging patterns? What are some of the difficulties that may spiral through in life? And this just felt like a much kind of wider, bigger macro lens from which I could start to put some of the pieces together. Now, tomorrow, after my kind of Enneagram Curiosity Beginner's Mind workshop I'm giving myself, I'm not looking for an outcome. I'm just filling in more pieces of the me map, which you see on the screen. And so all of this downloaded into this morning's spiritual practice of me maps. And so we have these different areas we're working with now that you all have information on about who you are and at the true core essence. Not that it's fixed, not that it's stagnant. Okay. We want to be working in the realms of dynamic and evolving and growing from a place of ease and harmony. So, from a place of deepest connection to like higher consciousness that's available to us in the more like cosmic realm is what's coming up. That sounds so vague. So, like the connection to the trees and the plants and the animals and our dreaming state and the elements, like what is our deep relationship with fire and water and air, also included. So our me maps are made up of, now you guys have a bunch of things to plug in. Your soul age and soul type from the Ainsley's, the instruction workshop. You have your Enneagram type or types that you're working with. Don't be fixated. I'm not telling you this, like I have advice for you. I'm saying in circle, let's sit in shared wisdom right now. I don't want to be fixated on my type. I want to be dynamic. I want to be fluid. I want to be wise. And so I don't want to over focus or fixate on the content. I want to feel into what might be possible. And when I'm in a challenge or struggle, where is the growth or where is the opportunity for me to transcend is not right, but like be with, and then maybe transmute, maybe dissolve, maybe just being able to expand into all of the types, something like that. It's more of a feeling state. It's really hard for me to articulate this in words, but I can feel it and see it almost as the triangle and the circle and the Enneagram points, is like, I see it as this like pulsating creation. On your me map, what are your Ayurvedic doshic primary types, right? We're all of them. We're made up of all of the elements. We're just reflections and mirrors of the divine, of nature, of these elements. But where are your tendencies in your constitution? Because of course that will play into it. And then there's two others. If you know anything about your astrology, that can be very helpful. Your sun sign or your moon sign or both. You might be able to see some patterns and typings here between these elements, or kind of how you might express in one of these realms and then be maybe your Ayurvedic type or your astrological type like complements it or helps you be more in harmony. You know, what are the other kind of pieces to the puzzle that is you? And then I just added any other typing system that you like or you use, or any other archetypal system. There's lots of other ones that I don't particularly use, but you might. Human design is one I think of that people love. That just it doesn't resonate with me at this point in my life, but it does for other people. So you may have other pieces of your puzzle that you want to put in. You may also not have connected with one of these systems that I put on the me map that you want to take out. But the point of this is that, remember the story I just told? I was feeling a little bit fixated and micro and honing and contracted. And I noticed that contraction, and that's not a place in which I feel most connected to universal energy and source. And so when I sort of noticed that, I said, show me another way. And this download came through to make this me map with all of these pieces, build this project tomorrow, just for pleasure, because this is the stuff I love to study. Like, this is not because I'm going to get anywhere. There's nothing I'll do with it except for just have some journaling notes. And this is like part of that pure essence. That may not be you. It's totally welcome here. But I think for me, this process of like returning to curiosity, returning to beginner's mind, not being fixed that I know. And the reason that feels really important is because there are so many other forces in play. I want to name that there's internal forces, meaning how we feel about ourselves and our life, what we know that other people may or may not know. And then there's external projections and there's external forces where people are seeing you a certain way and they're in their own lens or their own me map combination or formula. And so they're in human relationship. There's the self, there's others, there's internal and external. And that's where we can get a little too heady about transference and projections. And we can really get stuck and fixated on wanting to know the known. And what I want to, for all of us to remember, myself especially in this moment, is we are in the mystery. We're in a mystery. These are wonderful systems and patterns that can be so helpful when we're struggling and suffering to help us kind of flow through the river of life. And we are in the mystery. So many of these things are kind of, true to the level of ignorance that we have, like these are wise systems that can be helpful. And yet there's a lot of unknown. And yet we are mysterious. And yet if we are so lucky, are dynamic and growing and evolving humans, alive, vital, this energetic vitality that comes from expansion. So I hope that this me mapping system or framework is a bit helpful to you on your own journey.